Crunchtime here in the studios of Austin Peay. Reese Britt, Christian Hunt, and Trey Whiteowl. Trey, welcome in, buddy.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back again. It's been a bit, but...
Absolutely, brother. Well, let's get right into it. We've got a lot of stuff on our rundown right here. I'm going to start with you, Chris. Go through Thanksgiving just with me. I mean, week of Thanksgiving, it's always fun. Go through it.
Week of Thanksgiving, let's see. I mean, obviously, just ate like a pig
of course.
On Thanksgiving. Watched the holiday tradition and the Lions lose on Thursday night. Or excuse me, not on Thursday night, but on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And then, just hung out with the family. Had a really good day with the family. So, Thanksgiving at the Hunt house was pretty good.
Awesome. What about you, Trey?
It's basically the same old like before.
Yeah.
Just really, he just hung out, went to Paris, Tennessee, hung out with relatives there, and then just ate a lot, like Christian said, saw the holiday tradition of the Lions losing on Thanksgiving, which is the normal nowadays. But just pretty much normal.
Well, a tradition unlike any other, the Lions losing on Thanksgiving and the Commanders getting run out of the building anyways, so we won't talk about that. But let's get right into Austin Peay football. Probably the last week we'll talk about it since they ended up falling to Chattanooga, 24-21, last-second field goal, 41 yards, 3 seconds left. Kicker puts it up there through. Let's go through it.
Yeah, tough day for the Govs. We've been talking about it all season and whatnot, but we've talked about how they've gotten lucky in certain situations. Yeah. Stephen F. Austin, the guy falls in the end zone for a safety. You mentioned last episode Southern Utah having to come down 21 points in the fourth quarter. And we talked about how we thought there was going to be a point in which Lady Luck kind of flipped the script and kind of, was not on the Gov side. And when first of all, Cam Thomas not playing, that wasn't on our side.
Right.
But when Corey Chapman got the interception in the end zone and then had the ball stripped from him and they scored a touchdown off of it, that's when I pretty much realized, like, oh, this might be where our luck has run out.
Yeah. Yeah, I was right there with you. I wasn't able to watch the entire game. I was doing something else, but the plays that I saw, Mike DeLillo, he went 12 for 22, 107 yards, 1 touchdown. That is not like Mike whatsoever. And I felt like we tried to get him, going with his legs first and then tried to open the offense up with his arm. But we haven't been doing that all season. So I don't know why we ended up trying to get him going into a game, with his legs first rather than, just hand it off to Javon Jackson. You got probably the best running back in the UAC. I mean, hand that ball off to him. He's going to get you 5 yards a carry. I mean, he ended up, 23 carries, 184 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, he was your offense. He ultimately was your offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and Trey, we got pretty much a front row seat to this on the scoreboard side to this game, and obviously not having Cam Thomas was a big blow, but there's
huge.
No offensive explosion outside of Javon Jackson. Through the air, it was just all dink and dunk stuff. Yep. Nothing down the field.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like what you mentioned before with was it Cam Thomas not being there. Realistically, if Cam Thomas not being there caused this offense to just completely disappear, despite the fact that you've got a running back that basically dominate. I got to take this off. I'm sorry.
Hey, I love how I love how we just pretended like it was just normal.
we just let it go.
Yeah, no, that's a sweet look, man. That's a sweet look.
But despite the fact that Javon Jackson basically steamrolled them the entire time. I mean, even his one touchdown his first touchdown on the day was just basically bullying the entire defense, and the fact that was pretty much the only source of offense you got for a majority of the game. That's just not a good sign.
Yeah.
And
no, it's not a good recipe like many of us like to talk about. But Kenny Odom, 7 catches, 51 yards, not a bad day per se. I mean that's a serviceable day from the freshman. But like we said, the Govs struggled offensively. Javon Jackson had a great day. Mike obviously struggled. But I think Cam Thomas being out was big, but that you can't that's not the reason we lost the football game.
No,
right?
no.
You got to look other places too.
And Trey Shack and Trey Goodman are two very capable receivers, along with Kenny Oda. I mean, listen, this is probably the deepest receiving core
no doubt
Austin Peay's had in its history. I mean, you're looking at 6 guys on that roster who are legitimately like really good receivers and can make plays for you. So somebody's got to step up.
Yeah.
You know, and the two guys that you're going to look at first are Trey Goodman and Trey Shackelford, but you know, MJ Singleton and
Brendan Hawkins, all these guys.
You know, somebody's got to step up.
Yeah.
And, you know, Jordan Goko, the tight end, they got to find a way to step up because, like Trey mentioned, you got a guy who's got 186 yards on the ground, and you lose like that. That's not acceptable.
I guess that's where everybody's trying to draw the conclusions. It's like, you know, you look at the box score and you see 184 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. You're like, oh, well, that team obviously won, and probably by multiple scores. But then, you know, you look obviously at the top of the box score and it's 24-21, and like that's just how football goes. Sometimes it's not your day. And we talked to one of the football players earlier, and you know, he said it just you know, it stinks because we knew we were the better team. And I think everybody in that stadium knew Austin Peay was the better team. But like we just said, that's not how football goes sometimes, and Chattanooga came out on the right end of it.
I will say 2 things. One, I've been worried about the Austin Peay offense for like the past 2.5 games, really. Mm-hmm. Well, not even 2.5, more like a game and a half, because the last game against Utah Tech at home, 2.5 games. The last game against Utah Tech and Central Arkansas at home weren't very good days offensively. Then the second half of the, the one that they played?
UCA?
You know,
yeah, it'd be Central.
No, before that. Like
Utah
Tech. Then before that one, they went away to like Southern Utah, and then
Eastern Kentucky, wasn't it?
It was Eastern Kentucky, and they didn't. And remember, Parker McKinney made that huge comeback with, and you know, Parker McKinney's a great quarterback, but still, you're right. Offensive woes. You know, they went desolate on the offensive side. You're exactly right.
But that was my worry, because their offense at home was just not really clicking in the last few games. Then the other one that frustrates me when like watching it is the fact that you are playing a backup quarterback in Luke Schomburg. Their starting quarterback, I believe, his name was like Chase Otopolis.
Okay.
He was their starting quarterback for most of the season. They went away from him after the actually, funny enough, against the last Furman game, and then since then it was just him. And I get that it's not like fantastic stats here. Like Luke Schomburg had 21 of 36, 259, and a touchdown and interception. But you still that's still pretty solid numbers for a backup quarterback.
Right.
And I feel like the main thing that killed Austin Peay in the end was I think it was mentioned earlier, that interception, which funny enough was at the very end of that first half. He picks it off, starts to return it out of the end zone.
Right.
And I'm like, why? Just don't. You will not have a lot of. And yes,
do you know why he probably? Because
Javon Holland with the Miami Dolphins.
He saw the pick six, the HE double hockey stick Mary, as it's now being called on social media. He saw that on Black Friday, the day before the game, and he probably was like, why don't I try it?
Yep.
And
it quite literally ended up the worst outcome you could have gotten.
And that's a 14-point swing. I mean, you go down 7 at half.
Yeah.
Right? You get a big momentum play on defense, right? Get a red zone interception, and then within 5 seconds, that all goes away, and you give up a touchdown anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think the moral of the story in the situation is that's why when there's NFL football on the TV and college football on the TV, you watch college football 100 times out of 100. So we'll go to we'll move on to Chattanooga's side of the ball here. You know, like you said, Luke Schomburg, 21 for 36, 259 yards, a TD, and an interception. Like we were saying, nothing through the air or on the ground really stands out, to me at least, to where they, you know, won the game the way they did. You know, I mean, you had Gino Appleberry carried 15 times 64 yards, a touchdown. I mean, that's nothing special. That's not bad, but that's nothing special. So
Then you got Reggie Davis going
Yeah.
for 17 carries and 97 yards.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, that's where, to me, that's where I get a little bit of like, okay, you give up 150 yards rushing. That's where you're kind of like, okay, well, really
163.
163. Nice math there, Trey.
Well,
but it's like that's not even like that bad in my
No.
opinion. I mean,
But it's still not good.
no, it's not. But I mean, UTC gave up 184 rushing yards to one guy.
Yeah.
So it's like you look at the stat sheet and you're like, how did Austin Peay lose this game? We're back to that same question, but it's like that's how football goes sometimes.
But if you're the
know?
defense, you're saying, hey, you only gave up 17 points. So yards is, like you said, yards is great and all. But if you only give up 17
Right.
points as a defense, you're kind of looking at it going, okay, if we give up 17 points as a defense, most
gonna win
likely
most
you're going
games.
to win the game.
They gave up 24 points.
Well, the defense themselves gave up 17. The touchdown was basically a fluke play.
Okay, fair
The
enough.
the fumble,
I agree.
Okay,
the
fair
interception
enough.
that turned into a fumble, like if he just falls down, like you said, instead of running it out,
If he just kneels it in the end zone, then it's basically going into half 14-7. You at least have a huge momentum swing for Austin Peay at that point, and then just went away.
Yeah.
And it's tough if you're Corey Chapman, and because I will defend him on this. He's one of our best players.
Yep.
He's made a lot of plays. He's had himself a couple pick six this season,
Mhm.
so he knows what it looks like. So I get he's trying to make a play. I understand that, but kind of like how you mentioned, Trey, there's a part of me it's like, hey man, let's take a knee. Let's get to halftime, down 7. Let's regroup. And instead, we're down
Yeah.
14. Now, granted, give them credit. They fought back.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they've done all year. I mean,
Mhm.
they've given up big leads and they've also come back from big deficits. So, and going back to what you were saying about Corey Chapman, it's like when you get guys that are uber competitive at the Division I level, really it doesn't matter. If you're playing collegiate athletics, you are uber competitive. So when you get the ball in your hands, you're wanting to put that ball in the end zone every single time, regardless of where you are on the field. And so I think that's where Corey Chapman's mindset was, and like you just said, he knows what it feels like to have a pick six and contribute points on the board for your team. And so I think he was just trying to make a play, and you can't fault him for it. I mean, get it high and tight, buddy. Get it high and tight. But outside of that, you can't fault him for trying to make a play.
No.
Is my opinion. And he's, that one play shouldn't be what Austin Peay fans remember of Corey Chapman playing at Austin Peay, because that dude's a straight baller.
Yeah.
Let's just call it what it is. So
he was fantastic for pretty much this entire season. So
Oh, yeah.
that's-
No doubt.
One bad play at the end isn't going to really change anyone's views of,
right.
I guess, how he was the entire year.
And it shouldn't to that effect. But Chattanooga will travel to Furman to play the Paladins this Saturday. So I know Furman struggled towards the back end of the season. They ended up losing to Wofford the last week of the season, and I thought that they were going to drop out of the 8 automatic, qualifiers or that have the bye, but they didn't end up doing that, which was kind of suspect. But I don't think Furman's as good as what everybody thinks they are. So Chattanooga might have gotten the upper hand in that. But remember, before we move on, follow us on social media. We got Twitter and Instagram at APSU Crunchtime. Make sure to follow us there. We try and make posts as much as possible. We retweet, we repost stuff on Instagram. So we're pretty active on that. But let's move into to some basketball, to some Govs hoops. I know the men's team, they had a tough loss last night, 61-50 to Morehead State. But let's talk about the Appalachian State game. They lost by 20. In my opinion, I thought that they would bring the players in with Corey Gibson to try and compete in a few of these games. I thought that they were going to do a little better job, but they lost to UTEP a couple days ago too. So, but DeMarcus Sharp, 22 points. He went 11 for 24 from the field. Jamonte Black, 11 points. He went 2 for 7 from 3. You'd like to see him bring up those numbers a little bit, but I mean, outside of that, I think those two did the best they could.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Sharp with 22 points and then Black with 11, and then you had Jones off the bench with 10,
Yeah.
and then outside of that, your technically fourth leading scorer had 5 points.
Yeah,
And that's I think that's a struggle right now with the men's basketball. It's just zero consistency whatsoever.
right. Yeah.
You know, it's one night it's Javonte Black, the other night it's DeMarcus Sharp, and then the other night it's another guy.
Yeah.
But there's no like consistency where the scoring has come from.
I think DeMarcus Sharp's gonna be that guy, like we're describing. I think he's gonna be that guy, but you know, regardless of where they've played before, right? Because this is a whole new team of transfers other than one guy, and so you know, regardless of where they played, whether it was Northwestern State, whether it was Missouri State, you know, it's a new setting, it's a new fan base, it's a new, you know, kind of vibe around, trying to build a culture of Austin Peay basketball that, you know, if they come in, they might not play well right off the bat. You know, we got to give these guys time to really, you know, find out what they are as a basketball team. I think we're going to be all right, but it's a little worrisome almost at this point, right? I mean, it has to be
A little bit, but at the same time,
losing to Morehead State really put the nail, you know, right on the X, so to speak, of me worrying.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you take a look at the graphic here that was provided to us by Trey Whiteowl.
Right.
You know, Sharp again with 20 points, so you're like, okay, you know, there's like you said, supposedly your best player, and then Black with 9, Jones with 7, and then you're just okay. You can't have one guy go into double digits.
I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Division I college basketball and expect to win many games.
And look at look at Morehead State. Well, graphic just went off, but Morehead State had 3 guys in double digits. You know,
the main thing with this one was that they just kept getting out rebounded at there. Like, if I see correctly, they were like 39 total rebounds for Morehead State, while Austin Peay had 19.
Oh my! Look at that graphic right there. 12 rebounds to our leading 4.
Yeah.
9 to 1, 6 to 2.
Yeah, I mean, when you're getting out rebounded by 20 in a game,
I mean, there's 11 points right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
on second chance opportunities.
And the sad thing is, we didn't really have like a lot of turnovers either. Like, when you compare the two, Morehead State had 9 more turnovers than Austin Peay. Austin Peay had many more fouls at 20 to 12. But then you go back to the thing that you mentioned before. There's no consistency at all when it comes to their scoring. Like, when you look at this, Morehead State, field goal-wise, 21 of 41 for 51.2%. Austin Peay, 19 of 50 for 38%.
Yeah, when a team's shooting 50% from the field, that's either one or two things. Either they're just lighting it up and they can't miss that night, which happens in basketball, or you're not playing good defense.
Right.
Which,
I mean,
if I had to guess, probably not great defense.
Yeah. From what I saw last night, it was a little bit of both, to be completely honest. You know, they made some shots where, you know, I just sit back in my seat and I'm like, gosh, all right. I mean, that's
nothing you can do.
Yeah, you can't play better defense than what that was, right? And then there'd be some times where, you know, they'd get some free runs up the court and, you know, they're pitching a 2 versus 1, you know, down there, and it's like, okay, that's a free 2 every single time. So I think, you know, Austin Peay's got a few things to sheer up, but I mean, I think once they get into ASUN play, it'll definitely be better than the last 2 years. Let's just get that one out there. I mean, you won 9 games 2 years ago, and then three ASUN games the year before, or the last year. So it'll definitely be getting better. But I think this game upcoming against Tennessee State on I guess December 2nd, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
6 p.m. So everybody tune into that one. But I think that's going to be a huge game. Tennessee State they're okay. I don't think they're on Morehead's level. So, you know, we should come in there and get a win. Ultimately, I'll say it. We should go in there and win that basketball game.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
try to get back on track.
Yeah, definitely. But let's move on to some happier things. Women's basketball, they're winning. They're winning some. So coming off a victory over Chicago State, 60-49. The Lady Govs were led by Anala Nelson, 15 points, going 4 from 9 from the field. The Lady Govs finished November 3-4 after a 0-2 start. The first game losing to a Division II team. I have to put that one out there. A very good Division II team in Trevecca. I want to say that, but still, they'll start December playoff against Mercer Saturday the 2nd. So both the guys and the girls will be playing on the same day at 1 p.m. Thoughts on the women's season so far? I think it's been all right.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned last episode,
Interesting.
This is where sports doesn't make sense. You lose to a Division II team, opening night, whatever. Good Division II
home
team.
home in our own arena, which is a little irks me, but that's beside the point.
Yep. And then so you lose to them. Then you lose a tough game to Chattanooga. Okay, you're getting better.
Yeah.
And then third game, you play an SEC team.
Yeah,
Top 25 SEC team at that. And you
Yeah.
beat them.
crazy.
Yep.
I mean, it's just like, and when I looked at that score, and it wasn't like we just like beat them by like a point. It was like we actually beat them.
Yeah.
Like we beat them by multiple buckets.
I mean, what was the final?
it was like 68.
63?
Was it 68, 63?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, that's 3 possessions or
Yeah.
2 possessions. I mean, ultimately.
And then you lose to Butler and then Cleveland State. So you start out 1-4 overall.
Yeah.
So after you get an SEC win, you lose to Butler, and then you lose to Cleveland State, and then you get back-to-back wins over Kansas City and Chicago State, which is like, again, it's basketball, it's tough, but we don't need to do this.
Yeah.
As a team, we need to kind of just sit here in the middle and be consistent.
Let's say, what
So
was that thing you said about the OSP men's? They just got to be consistent. That's what.
be consistent.
Yeah. I think that's what fans that are buying season tickets and the student body, I think that's what we want to see is just some consistency, like not going from like what the girls did of losing to a Division II team and then beating a top 25 SEC team.
Right.
It's like if you win the games you're supposed to win, right? You
Right.
win, I'd say, okay, you probably lose to Butler. Let's just give them that. You're supposed to beat Cleveland State. You're supposed to beat Trevecca. You're supposed to beat Chattanooga. They could have legitimately one loss right now and being looked at as a top-tier ASUN team, right?
Right.
Which that's good and bad. It's early in the season, so that's a good thing. They're trending in the right direction. But still, it's a blemish on your record. You have a losing record right now, so.
And the crazy thing is, you're still middle of the pack in the ASUN. I mean, you're looking at EKU sitting at the top at 6-1, Florida Gulf Coast 6-2, Lipscomb at 4-2, Central Arc at 4-3, and then you and Queens are sitting there at 3-4, just right there in the middle.
Right.
And then everybody else is below. I mean, Stetson at the bottom at 1-6, but so you're still where you can. You're still in a not bad spot.
No,
but like you said, you could be in a much better spot at the top if you beat the teams
right.
As a fan, I mean, is it cool to say that, hey, we beat Kentucky? That's pretty cool.
Right.
But, I mean, Trey, tell me if I'm wrong here. Would you rather lose to Kentucky and beat Cleveland State and Butler, or vice versa? I'd rather beat Cleveland State and Butler.
Of
lose
course.
Kentucky.
Vice versa, because at least then it would be understandable why you lost to, like, Kentucky, for example. But then, like you said earlier, beating Kentucky, then all of a sudden losing the next two, that's just... I would much rather have the former of the two, where we have a better record, where we know that we're a better team, than what has been displayed on the field, court, I should say, then beating a top team and then just go back to losing more.
Then it's just confusing. Then you're like, okay,
right.
you beat an SEC team. Why can't you beat this other team?
Which type of team are you?
Yeah.
At a place like Austin Peay, that type of talk is not really going to be at the forefront because we're pretty understanding of what we are as a university, right, in an athletics department. So nobody's going to beg the question like, well, just because you beat Kentucky, why can't you beat Trevecca? Or you know what I'm saying? Like they're just gonna enjoy, and we're gonna enjoy beating Kentucky. You know what I'm saying? Instead of posing more questions like maybe a Power 5 team would do, and such like that. But
if you want to become a successful program, you have to start asking those questions.
Absolutely.
It can't be a participation trophy like, hey, great job, guys, we beat an SEC team, which is great. Again, I'm not trying to take away from this. That's a huge accomplishment, and the women's team should be extremely proud of that. But it's fair to ask, okay, you beat an SEC team, but then you drop 2 in a row to very beatable teams. Like,
definitely.
If you want to become a successful program, you have to ask those questions. It can't be, oh, we'll just be happy with what we are, because that's how we became the doormat of college football.
If you want to be like take it seriously here as a whole from not only other universities but also your own like team and fans, then you've just got to win those games that you should be winning.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you what, we don't have too much time. We probably have about 5 minutes left, but I want to touch on one more thing. It's the the crowds at a lot of these sporting events, right? I think the football game was pretty solid other than the students. And I know Thanksgiving puts a wrench into that whole situation, right? Because, obviously, you have student athletes that most of those, student athletes go to the game to support the guys, but, they want to go back to their families. They want to do their thing. I thought the football game was well attended. I didn't think the basketball game last night was well attended. And, I think for two teams that have a lot of history playing against each other, there was a lot of Moorhead, a decent amount of Moorhead fans there, but not a lot of Austin Peay fans, and I was a little disheartened by that, just based off of it being a new coach and a new arena. Like, there's so much promise, and they're just, we're just not showing up for these guys.
And Corey Gibson challenged the fans at the beginning of the year. He's like, "We need you guys in the stands."
Yeah.
And and like you said, it's Thanksgiving. It was Thanksgiving weekend. But this is what I'll say about the student section. Thanksgiving works two ways, and Chattanooga filled their side of the.
They did.
Their side of Fort Terrace Stadium. They were in attendance. I was thoroughly impressed how many people Chattanooga brought.
Yeah.
So I understand, like you said, it is Thanksgiving weekend, but it works two ways. And Chattanooga showed up. Our fans, like our student section especially, did not show up. Which, is that the reason we lost?
No, but still, yeah.
But again, it's like, hey, if you want to say you support the team of your university, you have to show up.
Yeah. Yep.
You can't just be like, oh, I'll just watch it on ESPN.
Right. Yeah. And there's something to it. Like, and granted, I know Fort Terrace Stadium is what it is. You know what I'm saying? I get it only holds 10,000 and really doesn't get that loud. I understand that. But, just enjoying the college football experience, in a team that's really good at the FCS level. I don't think people understand, like, Austin Peay was a top 10 FCS football team this entire year. And so, just going out there and enjoying the game and, being there and saying, oh, I got class with that guy, and, I want to, or, I got class with one of the GAs down there on the sideline, like, just having that interaction and having those, connections to those people, and you want to support them, and it's not like you're watching. It's not like we're watching a 1-7 ball club out there. This team won 9 straight football games
after starting the year
0-2. Like, this team was a very good football team, and I don't think the student body really showed out and supported them.
Before we get out of here, I mean, Trey, you can speak on this. I think it is a little difficult because in Tennessee you have multiple choices.
Yes, correct.
Right. You have your Tennessee Volunteers.
Yeah.
You have my Vanderbilt Commodores.
Well,
you have
I don't know if you really have them,
MTSU.
Whatever.
You have ETSU. You have a lot of options if you're in the state of Tennessee. Whereas Trey, I mean, North Dakota State, South Dakota State, North and South Dakota, Montana State. That is their whole state.
It is.
Yep.
Like that's who they are. Mm-hmm. They don't have a pro team. They don't have an FBS team. That's who that state is. So
no doubt.
Be fair, we're having to compete with a lot of other schools.
Yeah.
But you do see a North Dakota State, a North Dakota, or a Montana State, and they got 30,000 people, and it is jam-packed in there.
Yeah.
And so when you go to see something like that, and then you see Fort Terrace Stadium having barely 7,000 people in there, and half of them are Mocs fans, that's when you're like, okay, guys.
Yeah.
Come on, let's help our team out a little bit.
It is disheartening, but you bring up a great point. I mean, it's like when – and I almost hate to say this, just me being, a Tennessee fan myself, being from Knoxville. It's like Tennessee draws so many viewers, and if you have an option, let's say you graduated from Austin Peay, lifelong Tennessee fan, and you are in Nashville, right? You live in Nashville, and Tennessee's playing a football game, going to be a sold out crowd in Neyland Stadium, right there. I get it. And Austin Peay, right? You're probably going to choose Tennessee. As much as that sucks to say, that's probably what's going to happen. But all in all, phenomenal season for Austin Peay. Yep. I thoroughly enjoyed watching them for the season, and can't wait for basketball season and maybe a little baseball season action this next semester. So, but that'll do it for us here, Crunch Time. I want to thank all the GAs back there. Steve, I want to thank Doc V. I want to thank David Ellison for allowing us to use the studios. And for this time, we're out. It's Crunch Time.